Good afternoon. We are bracing for major impacts from Hurricane Milton. It is going to hit the western part of the state, most likely by tonight around 11, midnight, early morning on Thursday. It has actually picked up some speed, so just know that we are less than 24 hours out from a major impact, actually probably less than 12 hours out, so that's going to happen. Now, there's a lot that's been going on. One of the things that we have done to prepare for this storm is what we've done in every storm since I've been governor, but we're doing it in the most robust way we've ever done it, and that is pre-stage all these power resources. You see these linemen that are behind me. This is one of the processing sites here in Lake City for Florida Power and Light. We've had linemen come from all over the continental United States. California, people are coming. Others have come. So we will have over 50,000 linemen that are pre-staged in the state of Florida. As soon as the storm passes, they are going to go to work. And look, if you are in the path of this storm, you are most likely going to lose power. So just prepare for that. Know that that's something that's likely to happen. If you are going to use a generator, make sure you're using it properly. Do not run your generator inside your home. The generator must be operated outside your home. Keep it away from any door or window. But all these folks are going to be brought to bear to be able to get the power back on as soon as humanly possible. We just did Hurricane Helene. That was 2.4 million restorations, as fast as it's ever been done in the history, I think, probably of all hurricanes in the U.S. This one, coming on the heels of Helene, where you still have hundreds of thousands of people out of power in other parts of the country, like North Carolina and Georgia, you have a lot of linemen who are working in those areas. So the fact that we got over 50,000, that in and of itself is a big deal, but especially considering that you have a lot of people that are still at work in the aftermath of Helene in these other states. It's really, really remarkable. So you will likely lose power if you're in the path of this storm. Just be prepared for that. Have a plan to deal with it. But just know that we've got huge numbers of assets that are here, ready to go, and they are going to go as soon as it's safe to do so. The other thing that is worth pointing out, it's a lot of focus, understandably, on the west coast of Florida. That's what's going to see the really significant storm surge, particularly where the storm makes landfall and just south of the eye wall is going to likely lead to the most significant storm surge. The way these storms go, they go counterclockwise. If you're on the north side of the storm on the west coast, it may be that pushes water away from the coast. That's possible depending on how the storm goes in. Right now, the track is that it's going to enter the west coast of Florida and then go almost horizontal across the state, maybe a little east-northeast, and then come out maybe in like southern Brevard County. Look, this can all change in the next 6, 8, 10 hours. But what will happen on the east coast of Florida is you will have the possibility for storm surge there. It may not be 10, 15 feet like we could get on the west coast, but it's going to kind of be the opposite. If you're on the southern part of the storm, a lot of the storm is going to push the water away from the east coast. But if you're on the northern side of the storm, the counterclockwise, it's going to bring surge in. So places like Brevard, Volusia, Flagler, St. John's, you're likely to see surge. You're likely to see, and we've had issues on the coast there anyways with erosion and whatnot. So just understand that is going to be something that could happen. It's not just about where it makes landfall. It's going to barrel across the state of Florida. It's going to exit on the east coast of Florida, and that also can produce some storm surge. So just make sure if you're on the east coast of Florida that you understand this is not just a west coast event. The major effects for surge will be on the west, but there is going to be impacts far inland and on the other coast in the state of Florida. The fuel situation, I know when the initial evacuations went out on Monday and then even on Sunday when people were anticipating massive run on gas, people were crowding the stations. You had long lines. A lot of the gas stations ran out of fuel. We have not run out of fuel overall. When those stations go through it much quicker than normal, they don't have the same delivery schedules that could keep up, so they got to flex. So what we've done is, one, we've got 1.6 million gallons of diesel on hand just for the state of Florida, and 1.1 million gallons of gasoline for the state of Florida. So that's just us. They're still bringing fuel out of the ports. The ships are not coming in, but the dockside operations have been going. Now, I'd imagine Manatee, Tampa, probably not at this point, just given what's happening. East Coast, that's likely. Dockside going to slow down too as the storm approaches. But we have, to try to overcome, had Florida Highway Patrol facilitate 106 long-distance fuel tanker escorts. So they got the sirens, they're bringing those gas into the gas stations, and they've done almost 1 million gallons of gas with that. So I appreciate what they're able to do for that. We may have interruption in fuel delivery into Port Manatee, into Port of Tampa, depending on the damage from Milton, and we will work on contingencies to make sure we're able to have a supply of fuel. But people should just understand, we've got a lot of fuel on hand from the state. There is a lot of fuel still left at the ports that will be re-engaged from dockside once the storm passes on the West Coast. But we could potentially have some of these ports that may not be able to open right away. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. We've been talking about the debris. That mission was an emergency mission to help local communities who suffered a lot of debris and were not getting the debris moved quick enough. Places like the Barrier Islands in Pinellas County, Barrier Islands in Manatee, and even parts of Sarasota Barrier Islands. They worked through the night for the last few days, all the way through last night into this morning, and they've been able to remove a remarkable amount of debris statewide. They've just our folks. This is not even our responsibility in the state. This is a responsibility of the locals to pick up the stuff. But we've done a total 270,000 cubic yards of debris throughout the state of Florida with just our Department of Transportation and other assets. And just on those Barrier Islands and that emergency mission, almost 55,000 cubic yards of debris. So probably in those areas where our trucks were doing all night, the last few nights, 24/7 with the landfills, probably we're able to take about half of the debris that was there and that would not have been picked up unless we did it. That's going to mitigate some of the damage that happens when the hurricane comes in. We've got a remarkable amount of assets that are assembled. I've been in contact with both the President of the United States as well as the FEMA director. We're also closely coordinating with all our local partners in the affected counties, and we have a National Guard contingent that has never been amassed before for one of these. 6,000 Florida Guard soldiers and an additional 3,000 from other states, 34 search and rescue aircraft, and 500 tactical vehicles. This is the largest storm mobilization in the history of the state of Florida. Of course, we have our Florida State Guard, which is out and doing great work, and they've got massive numbers of assets that are going to be assisting them in their missions, and some of those guys have done a really, really good job, and we really appreciate it. Now, Florida Disaster Fund. We have activated this for Helene. It's also activated for Milton because we know there's going to be damage. So if you want to do Florida Disaster Fund, you can go to floridadisasterfund.org. This is a tax-deductible charitable contribution. We've raised many millions of dollars. I want to thank Publix, Walmart, Wells Fargo, and Lennar for coming in big. You can also text disaster 20222, 20222 to be able to do that. Once we get an assessment of the needs and the damages, we'll be able to use that in a very flexible way to help get people back on their feet. We did it after Hurricane Ian to great effect, and we'll do it after this storm as well. If you have an EV and you're in an area where you are susceptible to storm surge, just know if your EV gets inundated with salt water, it increases the risk of fires. Those fires are very difficult with the battery to put out, and we have had people that homes have burned down as a result of those EVs being in the garage when you had storm surge. So if you can, you want to move that to higher ground and try to prevent saltwater intrusion. So we've had evacuations now in effect in these counties on the west coast of Florida. I know there's now some evacuations on some of the east coast counties that I had alluded to with the storm surge threat in the Barrier Islands on the east coast of Florida. The conditions are starting to get bad. Listen to your local emergency managers about when it's too dangerous to go out. In many parts of Florida, you probably could still go to a shelter, but you're starting to see major weather events happen. I know there were some tornadoes, massive tornadoes. I mean, just these like unbelievable tornadoes that you're seeing. So the hazards are increasing. Depending where you are, it may not be safe, certainly to get on the interstate at this point, but listen to your local officials. But if it is still safe and you can get out of the evacuation zones, you just go to local shelter in your county. You don't even need to get on the interstate or doing that. And we still have a lot of space in our shelters around the state. We have now Sunshine Skyway Bridge and Howard Franklin are closed in the Tampa Bay area. Courtney Campbell Causeway and Gandy are closed going into Pinellas County. Those will likely be closed completely very soon, and it's just a result of the conditions that are deteriorating. So please understand the closures of those bridges. Until 5 p.m. or it's no longer safe, if you need to get to a shelter, we've partnered with Uber to provide free rides to shelters in counties with evacuation orders. If you want to do it, the promo code is Milton Relief 1, the number 1, Milton Relief 1. And that's going to go till either 5 o'clock today or when it's no longer safe, and that will likely vary depending on where you are throughout the state of Florida. So we have almost 150 shelters that are open for general population. We've got over 30,000 individuals that are in it, but we have space for over 200,000 individuals. So there is space available. The counties, by and large, I think are going to have Starlink. I think they're going to have the generator power, so if you lose power. So it isn't like, I mean, you're going to be able to use devices and stuff like that. Now, we also have 36 county-owned special needs shelters. Our Florida Department of Health works with that. They're opening in areas that are in the path of SOAR. They're open. And then we have done 6 state-operated supplemental shelters. So these are, we call them shelters of last resort. You know, maybe you're on the interstate and you think it's getting a little too dangerous. You can pull off, and we've got places that are not far away. Hard Rock Event Center in Tampa, City Furniture in Plant City, Bay Care in Tampa, Life Science Logistics in Lakeland, Babcock Ranch in Punta Gorda, and then the Wiregrass Ranch Sports Camp in Wesley Chapel. If you want to go to see your shelter options, go to floridadisaster.org/shelters. And then for any EM updates for your specific county, you can go to floridadisaster.org/counties. I want to thank everybody that's been working hard. We've had really round the clock for over 2 weeks now, preparing and responding to Helene, which was done very robustly, very efficiently. We got a lot of people back on their feet very quickly with power and other things. And we knew, because we're in hurricane season, we knew that we weren't necessarily out of the woods. We were hoping that we wouldn't have to deal with anything more. But when it became clear that something was brewing, people continued to help with Helene, but also spring into action to prepare for what is now Major Hurricane Milton. I know there's a lot of folks that have not gotten a lot of sleep over the last few weeks. We've got some more difficult days ahead today, and as we help to rescue people and assess the damage and try to get people back on their feet. But we will absolutely get through it. We can handle this. I've seen great sources of inspiration throughout the state of Florida with our first responders, with people who are working round the clock to help their fellow Floridian. And you can count on us. We're going to be in this all the way till the end. So please make sure you're doing what you need to do to protect yourself. Thank these linemen who've come in from all across the country to be able to be here, ready to go, and get people back connected to power as soon as humanly possible when the storm passes through. We don't know, you never know for sure how many power outages you're going to have, but I think looking at the strength of this storm, looking at the path of this storm, you're talking about potential significant number of outages, and we're used to having millions anyways, and you could have millions without power at some point for this storm. So be glad that you got over 50,000 linemen that are staged in the state of Florida and that are going to be ready to go to get on target and to get people connected. Okay, we're going to hear from Kevin Guthrie, Division of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor. I'll pick up where the governor left off. We are committed. We are ready to go. The Florida State Emergency Response Team has nearly probably 100,000 assets in the field, to include the 50,000 men and women of the electrical line crews that are working with us. They are members of the State Emergency Response Team. So, Governor, thank you for your leadership in that. We have the right resources to move into the right places at the right time, and this is evidenced by the men and women standing behind me. I've said it before, and I say it again, life-threatening storm surge is expected along Florida's west coast and portions of Florida's east coast. If you're under a mandatory evacuation order in a mobile or manufactured home, you rely on power from medical devices, or you live in a home that cannot withstand hurricane-force winds, then go to a shelter. There, as the governor said, there's probably nearly 200 shelters right in your communities near you with over 200,000 beds available. Your home and belongings can be replaced, but unfortunately you cannot. Neither can your family. You can find a list of shelters, including your state-run shelter or our state-run shelters, by visiting floridadisaster.org/shelters. If you do not live in an evacuation zone and you decide to shelter in place, make sure you have enough supplies to weather the storm. Make sure you have enough for everybody in your family, including your pets. Power outages, as the governor has said, are to be expected. We will have them. We had 2.3 million for Hurricane Helene. I imagine we're going to have more based on this track. If you lose power and you use a generator for backup power, please use it safely. Make sure that you keep that generator 20 feet away from your home and away from all windows. Wait 20 minutes for it to cool down before you refuel it. Keep it on a flat, dry space. And if you have a carbon monoxide monitor, make sure it's on, the batteries are up to date and ready to go. During the storm, if you hear trees snapping, you hear transformers popping, it could be that you're right on the edge of the hurricane's path. So please treat it as if it's a tornado. Go to the center point, lowest point of your home, get into that place. If you have a light mattress, pull it over the top of you and protect yourself from any type of flying debris. After the storm has passed, it is critical that you listen to authorities for guidance on when it's safe to return to your home. Do not venture out. Hazardous materials and hazardous conditions may exist and be present. Do not attempt to clean up debris by yourself when things are over, especially if you have fallen trees or power lines. Make sure that you wait for people to come and clear those. If you see these dangerous conditions, report them to your local authorities by calling 911 or non-emergency lines. Residents needing information after Hurricane Milton can call the State Assistance Information Line at 1-800-342-3557. There are English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole speakers available to answer these questions. Again, do not go out and do things that you're not capable of doing after a disaster. We do not need to have fatalities when somebody's trying to go up on a ladder, they're trying to use a chainsaw, they're trying to do extraordinary things. We're going to have plenty of volunteer organizations able to help you right after a disaster. Please do not do those things. Just let us come and help you. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help you. Governor, as always, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. I want to start by thanking our FDOT team members who've been working around the clock since we started preparing for Hurricane Helene and now shifting our focus and preparing for Hurricane Milton to make landfall. Really grateful for Governor DeSantis' leadership in directing state agencies to carry out this debris mission on the barrier islands in Pinellas, Manatee, and Sarasota. It was a tremendously important mission to prepare for Hurricane Milton landfall and get rid of as much debris as humanly possible on those barrier islands. We marshaled all of our state resources and even some of our road builder contractors to get out there, get dump trucks moving, get debris off of those barrier islands. The governor quickly saw that the debris vendors were just not keeping up with the local governments. We needed to get that debris out of there. It's remarkable what we were able to accomplish over the last few days. We've been working around the clock, 24/7. We had huge platoons of dump trucks last night moving in really bad weather, being escorted by Florida Highway Patrol, getting that debris to landfills. And as you heard from the governor, we were able to move nearly 55,000 cubic yards off of the barrier islands. We made a huge dent in that debris, and it is going to have a big contribution on safety as Hurricane Milton makes landfall. We have staged our assets near the cone and path of the storm, ready to move in. We have bridge inspectors, damage assessment teams, heavy equipment road crews ready to make temporary repairs. We're going to push in behind the storm, and we're going to follow it across the peninsula and get roads back open as quickly as possible. Really appreciate the linemen that are here and ready to respond. We work very closely with them to clear roads and cut trees out of power lines after the storm passes through. Evacuations have gone smoothly with I-4, I-75, and Alligator Alley. We did, under the governor's leadership, open the shoulder to facilitate those evacuations. Really appreciate the Florida Highway Patrol helping us with that. We are deactivating emergency shoulder use as we speak. We started taking the signs down at noon to hunker down for this storm and get ready for the impacts. Bridges and roads in coastal areas will begin closing, as you heard from the governor. The Skyway Bridge in Tampa, the Howard Franklin Bridge are already closed due to high winds. Courtney, Campbell, and Gandy causeways are closed going into Pinellas. All up and down the coastline, bridges and roads will begin to close because of safety conditions. Please be mindful of that. If you're going to get to a shelter, get there now, get there fast. Now is the time to hunker down. As we continue to prepare for landfall and get ready to respond, please remember FL511.com is the place for your most up-to-date traffic information. We will be updating it live after the storm passes through and you're trying to get back to your home. We will be updating FL511.com. That is the place to get your traffic information. Again, thank you, Governor, for your leadership.
So we're bracing, we're prepared, but we're bracing for landfall sometime probably late this evening. It may go into the wee hours of Thursday, although I think it's sped up a little bit, and it will work its way through the state of Florida. But if it goes in at midnight, probably be out, Kevin, by about noon at that point, if it's on the East Coast. So as soon as it's safe to do so on the West Coast of Florida, we will have linemen, we will have all the response that's necessary to be done. And so that'll happen right on the tail end of the storm. Again, just because the storm is going in on the West Coast, that doesn't mean that's where it's going to be limited to that. It is going to barrel across the state. You will likely have power outages from the East Coast, from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast in various parts. You will have some surge on the East Coast of Florida. May not be as much as what you get on the West, but I think you'll see some. So you should just be prepared for that. If there are evacuation orders on barrier islands on the East Coast as a result of the back end of this storm, take those seriously and make sure you're doing what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. But you look at to have 50,000 linemen over that here, to have all these urban search and rescue, all our National Guard, our State Guard, all these assets, the State Division of Emergency Management. It's been 24/7 for weeks. All these resources being brought to bear. You never want to have to face these storms, but I can tell you if you had to face them, these are the folks I'd want having our back. So thank you. Okay, do we have any questions?
The Senate President said she thinks that these hurricane issues will dominate the next legislative session. What hurricane issues do you think they should consider?
I think it remains to be seen, to be honest. If you look at Hurricane Helene, we had major impacts, but I don't know what that would mean in terms of legislatively. There may be some stuff we have to do with budget. So we'll see, but it isn't going to be anything that we're not going to be able to handle. I mean, we put aside $500 million a year just to respond to natural disasters. We started that when I became governor, and we've got a massive rainy day fund. We've got a massive surplus. So if there is things that we need to do, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. Okay, everybody, be safe. Let's get through this. Thank you. All right.